Hi, my name's Anthony, and I've been writing code professionally for over 20 years. The year is 2025, and while I was digging around on my computer, I found a C++ program I originally wrote in 2001. What follows is a retrospective code review recorded without breaks or rehearsals. On top of what I relearned about my coding chops as a teenager, creating the video has been its own learning experience for me. I cut the video down tremendously and saved you from dozens of hem-haws, rambles, mumbles, and a fallen privacy screen. So buckle up while I review Fight.C++ and prepare for more jump cuts than Liam Neeson climbing a fence. So this is a program I wrote. It says here, originally made June 1st, 2001, a good 24 years ago now. And some effort to port it to modern standard C++ in 2010. I just want to dig into this code to see if I can recall what it was that I wrote 24 or so years ago, and if there's anything I would do differently today. Mind you, I haven't really worked in C++ since maybe 2015, and you can kind of see some artifacts. I had C Con.io back when this was a DOS program. We have some classes in play. We have this fighter class. I'm not going to change anything yet because before I touch anything, I want to put it in a Git repository so I can track changes. Let's see what all files we got here. I even got these temporary files here. I was looking briefly at these before I started recording, and you can see there's already a difference here and here where I added this line in. And that's probably a couple of stages of that in here. And I'd be interested to see what other changes show up in the code. You can kind of see in the preview the width of some of the text changes out. Oh, this is a make file that was generated by Microsoft Developer Studio. Here's another one, format version 6.0. It's got a warning, don't touch this. NCB, I don't know what this is. Opt, I'm guessing is the object files. PLG is migration. Oh, this is what is it, the bug output? Kernel 32, okay. Look at this. We got an old style truncated folder name. It's probably like documents and settings. So that's all the stuff labeled fight is just all of these build artifacts, if you will. There's a separate debug folder that has a lot of this too. There's these fcar files. These are binary files that are actually generated by the program. There's this career save, and then there's this ant.fcar. Then there's names list. I'm guessing we just pick one of these names off of the list, and I don't even remember where I got this list. That's the stupidest name I ever heard. But it's a nice big list of names. 1,586 names. So yeah, it's definitely comprehensive. Then I got this attack list, which is just a shorter list of different attacks. Wow, I didn't hold back, did I? Makes fun of, and then I got these %t, which are the placeholder for the opponent's name. Wow. Emotional damage. Lots of literal attacks. Scalding hot coffee. That's a lawsuit. There's well, it could be incorrectly. It could depend on when you have the if it was the last attack, the finishing move, it could be the touch of death. Blows hot breath at, pees on, farts on. Yeah, the imagination of a teenager, I guess. All right, let's look through this program and see if we can just get a feel for what's happening in here. I have these character arrays for the representing the attack list file name, the names list file name, and the default career file. I don't know what file size is. Or name length, or these really are just more constants, and I don't know why I put them in here as defines, preprocessor directives. There's one reference right here. We got our first class, the fighter, visible from the beginning. I think this would move into its own file if I were going to refactor this. Make file name. Converts the character name into a usable file name. That's cool. So we got name. Now the reference here is to name. It's the private. It's going to be down here probably. Oh, cool. It's in public. Yeah, I guess I didn't care much about I guess I didn't care too much about protecting having properties in classes. It can be manipulated at any point by any part of the program. That's not the end of the world, right? There's a lot of stuff that's just getting underlined. And name followed by double colons supposed to be a class or namespace name. Well, yeah, I believe that is the point. this may be something that changed since the last time I attempted to compile this. So the first thing I'd like to do with this program is to try to get it to compile, really. Just like we know what's happening here. This is a string copy. It's supposed to be a string copy. We're going to redo this. Let's see what else we got here. Copy file name. There's another one. This is IF stream. It's definitely in there somewhere. Probably IO or F stream. There it is, F stream. I bet if I typed in std, hold on, this would work. Yeah, see. But we'll leave that off for now. So we started with our make file name. We're making a file name based on the name of the fighter. We got our reset function, which resets the name to nameless. We set their stats to 0. We do a copy file name. This is from a array pointer. Certainly not something you'd use in conventional C++ anymore. Probably could pass it by reference instead. So we're generating a random name here. This is opening the names file live. If I were going to do this now, I'd probably cache the names. Also, on the subject of this class here, there's a reference to a file name. File name is a protected value. Okay, so that's protected at least. One of the things that happens in here that I would avoid doing if I were writing something like this from scratch is we're messing directly with reading a file and getting records from the file in the process of this random name generation. And so this is a nice function here that is pulling a random name from our names list file, or it's supposed to be if everything we're still compiling. And then this returns early if the file doesn't exist. Everybody will just be nameless. And we're getting all of the names out of there, and we're incrementing a counter. There's probably a better way to write this too. You don't have to, rather than a loop. So I write C# mostly and work with that environment. And this type of thing, you might just get a count of all the occurrences of this colon character in the file using just like a one-liner basically. And really that would cover almost this entire block with maybe a catch on the file open. We're going to reopen the file to display the random attack. That might be a bad copy, like I copied this from the random attacks thing. One of the reasons I don't like to get too verbose with my comments is sometimes you forget to actually maintain the comments along with the code. And here we are working with a names file and talking about attacks. Randomize the attack based on a number of colons. So we're counting the colons. We're running this rand function. The rand function, we know what this is. Return a random integer between 0 and rand max inclusive. We skip to the chosen attack. Again, we're talking about names here. So this is probably just copied, which tells me there's an opportunity to consolidate this with another function somewhere else in the file. We file in ignore. I don't even know what that does. And neither does this. I'm guessing it skips to 1,000 characters or new line, whichever comes first. Display the line after the colon, so it ignores that. I declared here. And I declared here that it doesn't have. Oh my god. It was never defined. I'm afraid to ask how this ever worked. Alright, void random tribs. Setting random values for strength, dexterity, agility, and stamina. I like how these have short names instead of the full length name that's right here. So we're getting it's generating random numbers continuously. I'm sure there's a more efficient way to do it. And rather than looping through over and over again, just take a set number of points out of the total points. So if like strength gets greedy and takes all the points, it would have to take everything minus 3, and cap at like those points minus 3, and then dex would be all those points minus 2, so on and so forth. Let's see, show attributes. Here we're printing the information, getting the stat sum. This is just, I assume this is for like almost like player level. It's mentioned up here a little bit. Start level 16. This tells me that we're probably using that as like the level is just the number of points that are available rather than an actual level. Well, I guess it's the same difference really. Check stats for 0, which is not used here. But if strength is less than 0, so either one. At least when I wrote this, there wasn't really a concept of true versus false we would use. We would just use an integer instead. So that was all of the fighter. We have these private bits here. I mean, these public bits: name, strength, dex, agility, stamina. I probably wouldn't do it that way. You know, the drill is you create a getter and a setter for each field that you want to access. And then these would be hidden in private. So here we got career, which extends fighter. Career reset, we're tracking wins, losses. I don't know what O wins or O losses are. And purse. So it's tracking money probably for training. And you would use money like experience points, I guess, to level up your skills. There was a little bit of influence in this game from ABC Wide World of Sports Boxing, which was an early 90s boxing game. So you'd do a career like this, you'd track wins and losses, you'd have exhibition matches, fight for position in the rankings, and each month you'd consult with your manager and your manager to arrange fights, and your trainer to build up different stat points for your boxer. We got our list of function prototypes. I guess I declared them all up here so that we could get right to the main function. Definition for career stats is not found. Oh boy. That could be fun. There's a lot of passing by reference here, so I at least understood the concept. Then we have a couple of pointers. Why it's a pointer, not a reference, I don't really know. I feel like that should be also passed by reference. This is our seed for the random at the very beginning of main. Int option is declared with no default value. I think we give it an assignment before we do anything. Yeah, right? Very first thing we try to do is give it an assignment. So what happens is we're testing all the files that are used and making sure they exist. I think this is just warning you. None of these are making the program exit. Couldn't find the moves file. We do a check, and it's the same pattern. This is probably something that could move to a function where we just say test file, and really just it's this whole thing. Test file, and then there'll be like pass a string in that says it's still okay to play. Press any key to continue. Okay. Fight couldn't find the names file. File used to make random names. Computer generated fighter names. Create this file. Each line should read similar to Bob. In this case, Bob is red. Names only could be 20 characters long. Press any key to continue. Only 20 characters, huh? Fight couldn't find the career file. The autosave load file for career mode. This file should be made automatically when you enter and exit career mode. Press any key to continue. Yeah, right. So if you're starting a new game, it's probably going to yell at you that the file doesn't exist. We're going to do a close and clear. So again, same pattern, open, close, clear. In a refactor session, this would probably move to a separate void method or function. The proper program begins here in this loop, and I'm guessing every time you run menu, it's going to be one thing that runs, which isn't too deep. There's a display of the menu here, which is kind of cool. We got a title here. I don't know where we had. Did we have title showing? Here we go. So here we're showing the title, and we print this guy. You have to read it to believe it. Oh, ever the showman. I've got a new line followed by standard end line. Okay, that's fine. This is fine. We got our menu. So we're reading cin into opt here, which is a standard string, by the way. We have an input for a string. It's funny because I have the character array up further, and that's a constant. Let's see, we're switching on opt 0, the very first character of opt. If it matches 2, then we jump into the career menu. If it's 1, we're going to jump into exhibition. Otherwise, we return 0. That's for quit. If we put in 0, return 0. And that's how you get out of this do while loop, is you hit 0 and quit out the game. And there's a release number here. I think that's referenced up here somewhere. Release 3. So we loop through that. And if we got any other character, it wouldn't be flagged as valid, and it would go back through the loop. And it would continue this part of the loop. Alright, so this returns 0. Every other thing, it executes this thing, it breaks out of here, and then if it's valid, it will return 1. So this is actually 3 commands in a row. We got our assignment of valid, our actual function that we're jumping into, and then our break to break out of the switch statement. Not how I would format it these days. I would do something like this. Give it, make it obvious that it's actually doing these 3 separate instance elements. Rather than repeat valid equals 1, I would probably say up here valid equals 1, and then drop it to a valid 0 on default. So exhibition goes like so. We got a player 1 and a player 2. Player 1 You name the character, it gives them random attributes for a start level, and it shows you their attributes. These exhibition fighters are completely randomly generated. Okay, so both of them. And you give them names, and it runs the fight for you. Player 1 and player 2. It passes their addresses to the function which takes a pair of pointers to the fighter class. So another fun thing that's happening here is all the class names are all lowercase. I don't know why I did that. Even in the C++ book, it told you to use capitals. I would probably take fighter and career. I would probably move them out to a separate file. Fight shows up somewhere. It's probably way down here in the program. We'll get to that in a bit. Because the other thing we could do is career stats. It prints the records for the career. Oh wait, this was the one that was saying was missing. Fighter, reference of a fighter. Oh, that's what's missing. The signature's wrong. It's gonna be another one we're gonna have to fix. Yeah, why the header wants to pass in a fighter and this one accepts a career because we have references to career property fields. O wins, losses, wins. Again, I don't really remember what the O versus wins was. And of course, I put comments on some of the stupid stuff, and I don't describe O wins at all. That was career stats. It's just a printout of the stats, very simple. Fighter has a similar deal, because here in Fighter, right, we got show attributes, and we print that out here. I'm actually surprised we didn't do the same thing with career and lump that into the career class, but this is fine because it doesn't have to be part of the career class. I might have a project later on where I port this to Godot or something. Who knows? I wouldn't necessarily want to lump this into the career class because this shouldn't be the responsibility of the career class. Just like reading the file shouldn't be the responsibility of the fighter class. So we get to the career menu, which is, we got a check for the career file. We're opening the career file and we're going to read. Oh, wow. So here's the thing, right? It'll probably crash if the file is to the wrong size, or this is probably the reason why the fighter name is limited to 20 characters. It's probably a hard length just to make sure that it doesn't go out of the bounds. Okay, that might be another fun refactoring. There's a lot of room for refactoring in this 24-year-old program. All right, so yeah, we got our menu. Our options are create a new fighter, fight a random opponent for practice, do a prize fight, do training, save fighter to disk, load fighter from disk, return to main menu. All right, and we are going backwards in the switch statement up the, well, zero's down here. Valid is one we break out, and we do the loop while valid, and we do opt is not equal to character 0. All of these are broken out into separate functions. Create goes to a new screen. If the stats is less than start level, why less than start level? Because it initializes, it resets it to 0 when it resets. So a new fighter, a new career fighter would have all zeros, and then their stat level, which comes from here, get stat sum, is the sum of their stats, which are zeroed out when you reset. It will only ask you when you have a brand new blank career fighter. So that's when it asks you to confirm to create a new fighter. Fighting a random opponent just says career random up. And you pass in your career fighter. Very simple deals. And there's checks here. This repeats. I think this should not repeat. I think we should be using a function that says whether this is true or false, and says basically is fighter new. And maybe I would even build it into the fighter or the career to say whether it's new, and just use this thing, and we would, rather than compare each one to start level, we would come up with that rule. Because this could be wrong. This could end up being, okay, this is not how we define a new fighter, and that could get you later when you're working through changing the behavior of the program. Here we got an opt equals y. Opt is a string, and it's doing a comparison to a character. Actually, why is it a string? So string, its opt is declared up here, standard string. And we are assigning it the to upper value. I'm surprised this, well, gets doesn't even work here. So when you create your career fighter, the points pool is equal to start level. So we set it, we give a points pool of 16, and they are allowed to distribute points. ASDR. Oh wow, what? Look at this. Here is an if else. Okay. When I wrote this, I did not know about ternary operations. This is something else that could be refactored. And the idea is you show the letter or you show a space based on whether the stats are there. This arrangement satisfies you, press Z. And I guess it just repeats this each time. I feel like there's potential here for refactoring because there's a lot of repetition here. Maybe you'd pass in the stat by reference and you'd say increase stat and then you'd decrease this or decrease it even. Dex is down here, dex minus minus is down here somewhere. And maybe you just say if this letter, do a plus plus on it or even plus equals 1 or minus equals 1 and work the points pool the same way. You could probably have like two parameters where one is the reference to the stat and the other one is the number of points you are increasing it by. And so there would be a whole check here, probably based on that number that you pass in. When you do a subtract, you'd say the new fighter dex, comma, and again, this would be a pass by reference. New fighter dex, comma, and you'd say -1. And what that would do is it would add -1 to dex and subtract -1 for the points pool, which is basically just another way to write what's happening here. And we would do that as a function and save ourselves about, let's see, 42 lines of repeated code. Oh, and then we would have to pass in valid too. Or maybe return valid. Say valid would just it'd be our return value. And default is valid is equal to 0 because it's default. Whatever you put it by default is not valid at all. And then of course we have Z at the top, which does a little bit of validation. And if it's not valid, it goes through the loop again. Okay. So that's creating your career fighter. You set your name first. I'm surprised it's not a loop. So you name your fighter and you pick your starting points. That's the whole thing there. Okay. This is all specific to a command line interface. If you were working in a graphical interface, you'd have event handlers for like a set of buttons. Each of these would be a button that you press and it would do something, and each one of them would be their own function. Career save. So we're saving. You could enter the file that you want to save to. It's going to save a .fcar file. We have our fcar files over here, our ant.fcar and our career save fcar. And there's this string concatenate here, and we're doing our file save right in this career save function. It does a confirmation the file already exists. Right to the file. We're opening it as a binary file, and we're writing the contents of the career fighter to the binary file. If I were to look at, can I open it anyway? You could probably see, and less. Oh, well, I don't know what this San, Darian, and Bubba stuff is. Maybe those are guys that I fought. It might show up in the opponents. Those are the 3 opponents. Okay, so each one has their set of stats, and you can't see it in here. There's a bunch of null terminators here. Like if I had this open in a hex editor, now the problem is, however this is storing the data, the order of the fields is going to matter, and it's not going to work right. I think if I were going to rework this, it might be, this is kind of stupid, but it might be like a JSON file or something like that, being that it's my own little project. It would just be easier for me to look at the save file and make sure everything is right, what was spit in here. But I definitely, when I wrote this, it was basically take the memory contents of my class and dump it to a file and hope for the best. I don't have faith that 24 years later it's going to load correctly. As a matter of fact, I think the comment says career save and career load functions seem to work only sometimes. So it's definitely a problem. So we created our career guy, we had our save, I think we had our load, similar deal, career train, training strength, and each of these has a cost. The cost increases linearly per stat already bought. The purse is probably based on the total number of points. And here it says check, not enough cash. Again with the repeated code. I think there was a sense that I didn't want to repeat myself if I could avoid it. But also, like, this is all very specific to career train. And I'm pretty sure C++ lets you do nested stuff. So like void increase stat. And that appears to be valid, right? Expected a semicolon. Oh god. Yeah, alright. And yeah, and it's doing all these get CHs that are no good. And it's doing a comparison to opt not equal to 0. So yeah, we got our work cut out for us to make this thing run, compile again. Career prize. So we're doing a fight. And we do 2 upper, and we're making opponents. Let me see something. What do we have? We had our stats. So this is a career prize fight. So we generated our player 2, or we've declaring that there is in fact a player 2. We get our number of opponents. Player 1, showing their attributes. The prize, we're looping through each of the player's opponents, getting their stat sum. Fight this person. Yes, no. And what is it doing? It's looping. If you say yes, it's going to print this. It's going to run the fight. The result is 0. I guess a 0 means that player 0, 1. I think we've got player 2 declared here, and it is never used. Yep, that's what happened here. Okay, so we would clean that up in a refactor. So we're adding the wins. We have O wins, and then we increase the purse. Same deal, we got losses and O losses, both increase. I think if we do a career random opponent, it only increases losses and wins, not the O losses and O wins. That must be the key difference here. All wins and losses are tracked on these wins and losses stats, but then we add these O wins and O losses, which include just the prize fights. I think what I would probably do, I would almost rather track them as separate stats, and then wins would be exposed as a combination of the 2 stats. That way you can get some statistics out of it, like random fights versus prize fights, and then you could look at that in some kind of statistics screen. Because maybe there's a third type of fight that we introduce, and you would end up muddying the waters because you wouldn't have a separate stat for the random opponents. And then of course we have the fight. This is the actual thing that's happening here, right? There's a get ch. So in the header comment, and we see this here, and even this is commented out. So there was this delay, right? I'm sure there's a standard C library, C++ library I can hit up for a delay function, a thread sleep function that will sleep a certain number of milliseconds or whatever. We've got a health thing going on here. There's a timer that each fighter has, which I kind of missed that when we first scrolled through here, but there it is, health and timer. Let's see how it's used here. This is the fight loop. Here we go. We're subtracting based on a random number modulo of the fighter's dexterity plus 1, so it's a minimum of 1, and their dexterity, any number of points between 1 and the fighter's maximum dexterity, minus 1. Am I understanding that correctly? That would tell me that if you have a dexterity of 2, no, okay, we're adding 1 to the end of it. So if you have a dexterity of 1, any random number modulo 1 is either going to be 0 or 0. That's it. So modulo 2, you get 0 or 1 plus 1. Okay, so each random number up to the fighter's maximum dexterity. A very basic timer thing happening here. So you could potentially have a fighter fighting faster with a dexterity 10 than a fighter with a dexterity 100. It's just statistically unlikely, but it could happen. All you need is that RNG to work a certain way. And then we get to action. Action is down here. We'll get into that a little bit. Each fighter is getting checked for their turn to action. And then they do their action. So we got fighter 1 getting a timer thing. If fighter 2's health is less than 0, we're going to break out of the loop. There's actually a while on the loop that checks to make sure that both of their healths are above 0. And then it checks fighter 2's health. There doesn't seem to be a concept of a double KO here. Here's our action. We have a random thing on the offender's agility plus the defender's agility times 2. Hit dodge formula over the next couple of lines. If the hit is less than the defender's agility, they attempt to attack, but the defender dodged. Otherwise, we calculate damage. I mean, this is pretty clean, but I would do a short circuit here and I would do a return. And then we wouldn't have to nest this into a loop, an else block. We just continue on with calculating damage and save ourselves an indentation level. I'm actually curious about this. Offender's agility plus defender's agility times 2. Why would... That's a choice, okay? That's certainly a choice. We calculated the damage. It's a simple stat based on the strength. We're doing a minimum of 1 damage up to strength plus 1, so up to a maximum of 1 over the offender's strength. Probably just so there's some variation with somebody who has a strength of 1, that they could do just a little bit more damage on some attacks. So we're stating the name of the attacker. We generate our random attack. And hey, remember when I said we had to reopen the file to display the random attack? Here we go. Skip to the chosen attack. This is copied code. I bet this whole thing is copied just like this. There's the same pattern here. We're using the colon that leads each line. Have the colon leading the line. Colon leading the line. It's the same function, just repeated for a different file, for a different outcome. These 2 file reads could be out of the same function. And this 871 line fight program probably doesn't have to be 871 lines. This is the whole thing. We've read through the whole program. There's several menus. There's several different ways a fight could break out. In my next video, I'll start refactoring it to see if I can get it to compile.